Dark Fae by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. Welcome to Aurora Academy. Here is your campus map. Please take note of where the Lunar Brotherhood and Oscura clan have claimed turret to ensure you don't cross into their territory. Faculty will not be held responsible for gang maiming or disembowelment. Have a great turn. Chapter 1. Elise. Damn, I love the sound of screaming in the moonlight. I stalked a slow circle around my prey, adrenaline coursing through my limbs. My fangs were lengthening with it, demanding I take a taste of him, but I didn't, and I wouldn't. Not while he had the poison coursing through his veins. A piece of shit like him would likely taste like piss on a day when he wasn't off his face on kill blaze anyway. The damn drug was making him delirious, though. The pain I was dishing up was resulting in laughter as often as screams. Just gotta push harder than Elise for Gareth. I ran my tongue over my fangs, savoring the sound of his heartbeat as it pounded a panic tune on the breeze. Yeah, he was high as fuck, but he was also terrified of the psycho bitch who had hauled him out of his car, wrapped him in a bubble air of magic, and transported him to this backwater alley behind the closed-down burger shack on the outskirts of town. I hadn't been sure if I'd have enough magic to get him the whole way here, but I'd done it. It was a damn shame I couldn't drink from him, though. I really could have used the magical top-up I'd gained by draining his power while I took a drink of sweet, sweet blood. I guess I just have to find some unsuspecting asshole to drain on my way home to get my fix. For now, I needed to focus on dragging the answers I needed from this pathetic excuse for a man who was currently trying to crawl away from the darkened sidewalk. I shot past him with my vampire speed, coming to a halt right before him, so that he gasped in horror as rancid breath washing over my black boots. He looked up at me, probably wondering what a skinny girl with white blonde hair down to her ass and freckles spattering her nose was doing, dragging him into the dark in the middle of the night. But he was about to find out why he shouldn't judge a book by its cover if he thought I looked weak. Pain and grief had carved anything soft and gentle out of me. This was all I had now. My thirst for vengeance was even sharper than my thirst for blood, and I'd get it no matter the cost. I didn't bother to contain my sneer as I looked down at the asshole who blinked up at me through red-rimmed eyes. "Fucking bloodsucker," he snarled, but there was no real venom in it. In all honesty, I wasn't sure why he was still in his Fae form. Werewolves were usually quick to shift into their order form with the slightest hint of trouble, but this guy was scrambling across the piss-stained concrete like a worm trying to escape a blackbird. But I was no blackbird. I was his worst fucking nightmare. I just wished he'd realized it before my brother had to die. I'd seen the signs. I should have done more. I should have read the cards. I should have backed the fuck up, Elise. You're here to get answers from this bottom feeder, not swallow in self-pity again. One thing I'd learned for sure in the months since the Solarid meteor shower when Gareth's body had been found in the dingy corner of that godforsaken academy was that no one else was going to get the bottom of what had happened to him. No one else gave a fuck about the truth. The Fae Investigation Bureau had dismissed his death as an accidental overdose, even though I told him straight that he never touched that shit. And despite the pitying looks the FIB officers had given me in response, I likely felt sorry for my ignorant ass, believing the best of my brother. I knew I was right about that. Gareth was a lot of things, but he wasn't a goddamn junkie. He was a Pegasus for the stars' sake. He could get a better high flying through a rainbow than he'd get from some drug. Besides, he never wasted money like that, or his life. He knew just as well as I did that there was only one way to claw your way out of the cesspit we'd been born into, and that sure as shit wasn't through snorting the weird-ass Fae drugs, which were probably being peddled by the gangs at his school. Just thinking of how proud Mom had been where he'd gotten to Aurora Academy, how much it meant to her that he would be getting a chance to better himself, I knew in my bones he wouldn't have let her down like that. He'd gone there to earn a better life for all of us. He wouldn't have started taking Killblaze, no fucking way. I hadn't been as lucky as him. I'd spent the last year and a half attending our local high school with no boarding facilities and no fancy ass classes on defending your inner Fae, whatever the hell that was supposed to mean. He'd known exactly what that opportunity was worth. Aurora Academy may have been one of the lowest ranking academies in Solaria, but it was still an honest to shit academy. And everyone knew that even a piss-poor academy education was 10 times better than a high school one. He'd have left that place with options people like us could only dream of. He even managed to land a full scholarship from the Rising Sun Foundation, which was designed to give the best of his gutter kids a shot at an academy education. And Gareth really was the best of us. Of course, I was smart enough to take the entrance test, too. Book smart, computer smart, street smart, people smart. But I know that Mom couldn't cope with the two of us being away in an academy and leaving her on her own, so I never even applied to one, knowing he needed it more than me. That he deserved it more, too. He was a better person in sleep than I could ever have hoped to become. And now, all of that was worth nothing. He'd made it to his junior year and ended up dead. Accidental overdose. Fuck that. Someone in the academy had killed him, and this Mongol was the first piece in the puzzle for me to find out who. I'm not telling you anything, bitch! Lorenzo shrieked, not for the first time. Vampire strength sure came in handy in a pinch. I stomped in his hand as it landed on the concrete before me, a savage smile tugging at my lips as he howled in pain. Want to rethink that, dipshit? Or shall I start removing fingers? Lorenzo rocked back onto his knees, hacking up a lot of phlegm from the back of his throat and spat it at me. I shot aside with my vampire speed before he could hit me, rounding him and catching him by the throat. He was a lanky fucker, a foot taller than me, but just as skinny. I still shouldn't have been able to lift him from his feet like that. But then what was the point of having enhanced strength if I didn't use it? Damn, I was lucky to have been born a vampire. Right up until my magic was awakened last year when I was 18. I hadn't been sure what order I'd turn out to be. Mom was an exotic dancer and a Pegasus. She loved Gareth's dad, which was why she'd given him his surname of Tempa. But when my dad broke her heart less than a year later, she decided to give me her own surname. She didn't like to talk about my dear departed dad with me, but it turned out he was a pretty powerful vampire, and I was lucky enough to have inherited that much from him. So he'd given me one thing, I'd guessed. When my powers were awakened, my fangs snapped out as the vampire in me awoke too. I half-ripped the throat out of the guy standing next to me and bid to drink him dry of blood and magic. It was fucking fabulous. Aside from the night I had to spend in the cell faculty called the detention area for losing control of my order for him and almost killing him. But that first taste of blood on my lips had been practically orgasmic, so I hadn't complained. Worth it. Totally. The fangs lengthened at the memory. The damn thing's always hardwired to my libido, though I had zero desire to take any kind of satisfaction from the smut before me. He'd pay in blood for his involvement in my brother's death, but not a drop of it would pass my lips. When my family finds out what you've done, they'll fucking destroy you. They'll mutilate you before you die. You'll be begging for them to end you days before they do, he yelled before I started laughing so much that I threw him back down to the ground in disgust. Yeah, that thought occurred to me too. But in the grand scheme of things, I decided to take the risk. For Gareth, I'd chance it. His dopey smile and hugs that went on too long. For the phone calls in the middle of the night because he never remembered to call at a reasonable hour before waking up feeling like shit for forgetting about me. For the way he always swore that he'd dig us out of this place and build us a better life somewhere once he graduated. For the fact that one of the assholes in that school had taken him from me and Mom. And now she just lay curled beneath the sheets, too heartbroken to face the world when the bills piled up and the days crawled by. I'm not scared of the Ascurib clan, I snarled, the shovel down my spine, the only spine that it was a lie. But he couldn't see that. I'm 10 times scarier than them. Lorenzo coughed through a mouthful of blood where his face was impacted with the ground. It stained his teeth a rusty color in the moonlight, and the iron ting of it on the wind called to me. Kill me once and I'm all gone. Tell me twice, that might be nice. 3 times you're getting close, but Ascurib clan will kill me most. Lorenzo pushed himself to his hands and knees as he continued to babble nonsense, and I stalked forward, aiming a kick at his ribs. My rage lent strength to my ribs, and I heard bones crack beneath the force as he rolled away from me. The sound sent a shiver of power racing along my limbs. I shouldn't have liked it, but I did. I was a cruel, twisted creature now, and it felt good. But before he could rise, I pressed my high-heeled boot down on his throat. The stiletto just pierced in his skin as he flailed beneath me. I hacked his emails, I hissed, leaning close as I continued to press my weight down. I know you were meeting him that night. I knew you were trying to get him to join the Oscura clan. The bunch of psychopathic werewolves who this asshole called family ran half of downtown Alestria and were so deep into the criminal underbelly of this city that I doubted there was a crime they weren't connected to somehow. If it wasn't for the Lunar Brotherhood meeting them blow for blow at every turn and keeping them on their toes with gang wars and rivalry, then I'd have to think the whole of the city and beyond would have been under their rule by now. They claimed whatever power they wanted so long as they were strong enough to do so, and the gangs had taken most of the power in this forgotten city of Solaria. Sure, the Celestial County technically ruled the kingdom, and it was them who set the laws which the gangs consistently flouted. But short of Lionel the Crux or any of the other pretentious assholes I saw in the news trekking down here to sort this place out in person, I didn't see it changing anytime soon. People with that kind of power just didn't waste time in places like this. I meet lots of people. Everyone knows my family, Lorenzo growled, a little of the wolf in him showing through at last. Yeah, fucking within a skirt. Even a bottom-dwelling amoeba like him. Probably was a bad idea, but I was goddamn craving and I had to get answers. I had to get these answers. I needed to know what happened and who was going to pay for the price for it. It was tearing me apart, ripping my soul to shreds and destroying what good I had in me. Besides, Lenzer was off his face in Kill Place. Chances were he'd think this whole exchange was a figment of his imagination come tomorrow, presuming I let him live that long. I still wasn't sure if he'd been directly involved in Gareth's death yet, but if I realized he had been, then vengeance would come on swift wings. I may not have had a huge reserve of power left in me, but my magic was strong enough to seal the oxygen from his lungs until he suffocated if that was required. Although I might have been tempted to go for a little something more violent. A little more violent. Your family aren't here now, but Gareth says, and I'm not letting you leave here without giving me the answers I want. Lorenzo cried out as he sprang to his feet and launching himself at me, almost one in relief at the excuse to vent my rage on him. My uncle slammed into his face once, twice, thrice. Blood flew, curses spilled from his lips, a solid punch crashed into my gut painfully, and a spike of twisted pleasure followed it. Yeah, pain was one of the only things I felt, and I was beginning to get a taste for it, but it wasn't enough. I slammed my fist into his face again, knuckles splitting deliciously before I fell back, but I caught him keeping on his feet, holding onto his wrist. He swung at me again, and I shot around him using my vampire speed, kicking out the backs of his knees so that he crashed down onto them as I circled around to face him once more. Grief almost split me apart as I pictured my brother on the floor, his body horribly cold and his limbs twisted. I bellowed my rage, rearing my head back as I caught him by the collar, driving my forehead down on the bridge of his nose. I heard a crack as Lorenzo screamed in agony, toppling back the ground beneath me as I refused to release him. Vampire strength was handy as fuck for me and calling on life. His blood splattered in my face, but I resisted the urge to lick my lips, fisting my hands in his black hoodie as I straddled him. Tell me what happened to him! I snarled, losing my cool, and feeling the beast within me flex her muscles as I dug into the reserves of my outer strength. Lorenzo started laughing maniacally. He'd kill me worse than you. He's the king of the academy. You can't begin to compare. I slapped him to stop the laughter, burying my face as blood dripped from my face down onto his. You think you know nightmares? I growled nice and low. You haven't even met me yet. 5 minutes in my company has you bleeding in a puddle of piss. Think how bad you'll feel after 5 hours. I want answers, dog, and you'll give them to me one way or another. If you're lucky, you might leave this interrogation with your life, but don't expect to keep all of your limbs. Learn to stop laughing, staring up at me with bloodshot eyes which wheeled wildly. He'd started twitching beneath me, and I had to wonder just how much of that foul drug he'd taken before this exchange. You're a walk in the park compared to him, he breathed. And if I tell you anything at all, I'll pay in more than blood and flesh. You will talk, I assured him. Everyone has a breaking point. I know, he replied. A bubble of laughter escaped him again as he pressed a hand down on his chest over his heart, which is why I won't let you find mine. What? I snapped. Lorenzo laughed and laughed, his back arching beneath me as he put a small amount of effort into bucking me off of him. I wasn't going anywhere there. If you know what's good for you, you won't tug at this thread, he whispered, his eyes glimmering with a desperate kind of clarity for a moment I wish I never had. What does that mean? I demanded. Lorenzo's smile widened for a heartbeat, then his eyes suddenly rolled back into his hand, and his hand fell away from his chest. Shit! I cursed as I spotted the dagger of ice impaled straight through his heart. I scrambled upright, looking at his still body, his blood pooled beneath him in a mixture of shock, outrage, and simmering disappointment. He used his water elemental magic to create a shard of ice to kill himself rather than risk telling me what I wanted to know. My mind whirled, my lips parting with horror and disbelief. He barely told me anything. I was still just as deep in the dark as I'd been before, except he's the king of the academy. We can't begin to compare. So maybe all I had to do was find this king and I'd be able to get my answers. Lorenzo's fear of this so-called monarch probably should have had me rush in the opposite direction. He'd chosen death rather than crossing, but I didn't feel fear anymore. The worst has happened. The only thing left to me now was rage and vengeance, and I wouldn't stop until the man responsible for killing my brother paid with his own life. I backed up before Lorenzo's blood could stain my shoes. At least I hadn't bitten him. No one would suspect a vampire took part in his death. It'd probably just be put down to gang violence. Add him to this week's body count. I turned my back on Lorenzo's corpse and stalked from the shadows, leaving the blood and the stench of death behind. Maybe I hadn't gotten the answers I wanted from him, but he made it clear where I'd find them. Looks like I'm transferring to Aurora Academy.